we will send out an email with the presentation afterwards. So if you have any questions for us at Aesthetic Professionals, we're distributors for Amann Gierbach and 3D Systems and a few other companies. So if you have any questions, feel free to reply back to that email. Go ahead, Adrian. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to go over a bit of review. If you came and joined the webinar last week, I will have some review of that. So I'm sorry if that bores you, but I'm also going to focus more on other types of indications as well. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history about how the printer got developed and more input on the software. So we're going to take a deeper dive into the 3D Sprint software. CE credits are available for this course. So if you need them, go ahead and email Holly, and she will help you get that all squared away. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a little bit of a PowerPoint, and then we'll go and we'll do some live printing and post-processing. I'm going to do more prosthodontic models today and show you some other indications as well that I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and show you the webinar. So today we're going to talk about the following. I just want to give you a little bit of history about myself, just so you know who I am. This is my son, actually, and I always bring my work home with me, but he helped me to become a better trainer because in the beginning, when I first started learning digital, I've been a dental tech for a really long time and almost 18 years. And it was really hard for me to go into digital because I was so used to building with my hands and waxing. And so I would bring things home with me to try to learn CAD because it was so frustrating when I was sitting there in the lab trying to do what I used to do with my hands on a screen. And I became a trainer, actually, after I finally got a good grasp on that. And it helped me to simplify things. When I was teaching my son, it actually helped me to take a step back and not overthink things. So I've been a trainer for about 12 years now. And it started with me just learning how to do it myself. I remember when Zirconia just came out. I've worked with a pretty large lab and helped digitize all of their departments. And then I started training ExoCAD and Medit and also Carestream scanners. So I've worked a little bit of chairside. And then now I train the 5100, and I can train all the way from scanning to seating the crown or the whatever prosthetic you're going to do. So not a master of all trades, but not a master, but a jack of all trades. And I've been 3D printing for almost, I would say, about 10 years. And whenever I'm training ExoCAD and training printing and milling, I say, oh, never, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's already there. But it came to a point where with 3D printing, it was actually something that really needed to be reinvented. And I was really happy to find out when I was a beta tester for 3D Systems when I was at the lab, and we had a whole room full of printers. And this is what our print center looked like. We had something for everything. We had a few more printers that aren't shown here, but I'm just going through my old cell phone photos, and it was like, yeah, I remember that. I remember this. I remember that. And while all of these printers are so good at one thing or another, it was like nothing was great at everything. We had to keep buying more and more printers. And we would want to start a new workflow or add to our existing workflow, and the printer that we were using just couldn't handle it, so we had to buy another one. So it came along a couple of years ago that we knew there was a problem, right? And I was still working at the lab at this time, and this is when I was a beta tester for this printer. And there was a problem that all of the printers that we were using were accurate for one thing or another, but not for everything. We needed a printer that was accurate enough to make you a crown or a provisional or prosthodontic model or an orthodontic model, a tray, a denture. We needed something that was accurate enough to ensure patient safety, and we could use it on all of our materials. We needed more materials. There was a serious lacking. Now, we had the ability to use Nextdent materials, but it didn't seem to come out as well in all of these different printers. So I wasn't actually that impressed. It seemed okay, but it could be better. And I couldn't say that everything was going to print every time, all the time. And then training and support. That was a huge lacking thing. Some of the printers had great training and support, but did not have enough materials. Still wasn't reliable enough. And there needed to be affordability, that factor. The thing is that you would spend and invest so much on one of your printers that you couldn't buy another printer for several more years because you needed to see your ROI. And it needs to be fast. Even if you don't need a super fast printer, when you decide that you want to make something besides models and your printer takes all day to print one plate, you have to buy another printer because it just doesn't have enough, you don't have enough capacity. So one of the things I loved about this whole package is that it actually is fast enough to be able to do so many indications in a day. And I'll show you some of the times that it takes to do certain indications in different materials and the cost per part and things like that. And then the reliability really blew me away. So that is one of the things that I think took the cake for me on this printer. So I'm going to go through some of these and I'm going to show you why it was different than my experience with all of the other printers. And hopefully give you some tidbits. If you are do own a Nextdent printer, I'll be able to give you some tidbits on how to use some of the advanced functions and what kind of maintenance you'll need to do and things like that. So if you don't know how this printer came about, this is the original. This is the granddaddy of the Nextdent printer. It's fully automated, 300 parts an hour, all controlled by this. But this is a huge machine, right? All the parts come out post-processed at the end and you just pick them up. Now, that reliability, that consistency, that accuracy was all cram-packed with the Nextdent materials into the Nextdent 5100. And that is how these came about. 3D Systems acquired Vertex and then made a printer to go specifically with those Nextdent materials, which is why you see such good quality and reliability at the end. And it's made in the US, which is really a convenient thing. If you've ever dealt with a printer that's not made in the US and you live in the US, it's not easy to get parts, it's not easy to get service. So it's pretty actually convenient, and you can get an overnight printer. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how this was different, what the installation looks like. Maybe you haven't installed your printer yet, but you've already bought it. Maybe you're thinking about buying it. Maybe you're just kind of wondering how to make it work better. So I'm going to hopefully not bore you if you've already got the printer. I'm going to go over how it works. I'm going to do some live printing. I'm going to do model printing today. What all you can make. I'm going to show you some examples of what other people are making, what kind of maintenance it requires, and some of the training and support functions that 3D Systems offers and that the reseller will offer. So if you haven't received the printer, or if you have, you recognize this. It is how the printer comes. It comes fully assembled, and it made a huge difference for me because I was able to, in fact, I let this thing sit in my warehouse for a month because I was not excited to unpack yet another printer. And when I unpacked it, I was pleasantly surprised it only took me about 10 minutes. I needed another person because I'm a little bit smaller frame to pull that out and set it on the pedestal. In fact, we actually put it on our counter at first. And all I had to do was plug it in, put in the Ethernet, and install my 3D Sprint. There was absolutely no calibration, which I was amazed by. And if you own the printer, feel free to ask questions about calibration, but there is no calibration. There are ways to further dial in your settings, but each print is calibrated before it leaves manufacturing. So it's calibrated for its projector. The projector is steel mounted, so if you already have the printer, you can open it up and you can take a look at it and you'll see that the projector is mounted. There's only one moving part on this whole printer, and that's those arms that go up and down with the build platform, which makes it really great because there's no maintenance in moving parts that could go wrong. That also helps it to be so reliable and consistent for 8 to 10 years down the road. And you're going to see my setup, but this is a couple of different scenarios that people have done. And you can just put it on a counter, or you can put it next to a table, and this is how mine looks right now too, and you'll see that. And then you can also, if you're with a bigger lab, you can nest them. You can move them around on wheels. So if you're in a dental office and you want to clean under it or move it to a different room, you can just wheel it around. Also, if you're in an unlevel area, or maybe you have yours on a wood floor, the feet on the printer have shock absorbing qualities, and you can also level them out. Or you can put them on your countertop. So as you can see, it's not too tall to use. And then as we went over on Friday, there's fully integrated solutions. So basically, we place printers at Exocad and we place printers at 3Shape, and they validated our settings that we came up with. So this way, you don't have to go through all of that dialing it in. So if you already own the printer and you're having problems with settings, please reach out to us because we can help you get those all dialed in. We can just give you the stuff that we've already dialed in for Exocad and 3Shape, and then we've also dialed in just a presentation of settings for you so you can plug them in if you're not using either of these two. And also we worked with some design services as well. So we gave them our settings, they validated them, and so all you have to do if you're not ready to design your own dentures or design your partials, you can pay somebody else to do it and tell them that you have an Nextdent printer, or maybe you're a doctor and you want your lab to do it. You tell them you have a Nextdent printer, and they'll use those specific settings. Now, when I was managing the digital departments in the labs, it was always a nightmare to get a new piece of equipment. And I really appreciated the fact that this was already done, because with mills and printers and everything else, it's crazy because you have to sit there and waste a couple of discs. You have to waste printing material, waste time. A whole technician has to sit there and try out 8 different settings and then see which one works. And then it depends on type of appliance. So I really found that to be beneficial and saved a ton of material and frustration. So let's see. Holly, are there any questions?
We are good right now on questions.
Okay. So if you saw this on Friday, if you have Exocad, make sure that you change your material configuration on the Dental DB in order to get these materials. You'll just go to the bottom left and you will choose the Nextdent 5100. Okay. If you have Exocad installed on the same computer as 3D Sprint, you'll automatically have a 3D Sprint button that pops up on your Exocad. So if you are going to, if you have, this is usually a smaller lab or a doctor's office, if you are the same technician that does the nesting as does the design, then you can just go straight into nesting. It'll choose the material for you. It'll put it in pretty close to the proper orientation, and you don't have to worry about that either. Now, obviously, if you have a larger lab and there's separate technicians, then they will just pull it from a folder. So now, by the way, if you don't have Valletta or later, then you'll have to get your reseller. So aesthetic professionals could put these in for you, but you can still access these settings. So you don't have to have the newest software of Exocad. And then on our website, we have 3Shape DME downloads as well. So you'll just follow our instructions. We've got a whole lineup, and I'll give you the user guide address too, so you can take a look at that. So if you don't use our printer yet and you want to see what it entails, go to our user manual. And if you do use the printer, be sure to check it out because we have videos and instructions on everything. And so let's talk about 3D Sprint. So one of my favorite things about 3D Sprint is it doesn't crash. So it slices the parts that you put in there so quickly within 15 or 20 seconds. And if your part is not actually made to print, like let's say it's an intraoral scan or it's a bridge that you were going to mill, it will fix it for you. And the nice thing is there's no annual fees. And we do tons of software updates. I mean, you'll see it probably 4 or 5 times a year. We add something awesome to it. And I'm going to go over the newest updates for those of you that are using the printer toward the end of this session. I'm going to show you all the things we've released and how to get to them, and also some of the upcoming features that'll come out this month. Every time, by the way, we add a material, you're going to get this upgrade. So Denture 3D Plus just came out. You're going to get that upgrade on your 3D Sprint. You don't have to buy any more updates at all. So every time we make new materials, we have chemists working in the lab day in and day out on new materials and new build styles that are faster, more accurate, smaller support styles, things like that. And also, what are the benefits of robust nesting software is that you get your auto placement, auto support, And when I say auto support, it doesn't mean the same type of support for every material. It means we worked on the smallest support tips possible for every single material. And we've just added like a new one for surgical guide, which I will show you at the end when I show you these new features. But we make the support tips as small as possible for every single material and as few as possible. Also, you don't have to preview slices. I have spent years of my life previewing slices, and it's something that is really tedious. And if you're in a big hurry, you miss something, you don't have to do that here. Fast slicing. So it's not like camming anymore. It used to be where you'd have to wait 10 or 15 minutes for the slicing to happen before you could even start the print. And anti-aliasing. So I'm going to show you a couple of images of anti-aliasing. But all of this equals less chance of failure. So what I mean by robust slicing is these are photos I took with my iPhone, and that it's basically, if you don't have a robust slicing software, randomly it will just skip slices and you don't even know. So you go and you get your part out, and this one on the right is, you can't even see it printing. So it just shows you an image on a screen and it's like, looks like it's successful. This took 3 hours to print, this tray, and it was missing all these slices. So annoying. This one, you know, it took a little over an hour, but it's missing these perfect group of slices. There is nothing I could have done to prevent that. Really frustrating and a waste of material and time, right? I lost my printer for an hour on this one and 3 hours on the other one. So time and frustration. So this is anti-aliasing, okay? So this is what it looks like when you have pixels that you can see. And so you'll notice that if you already have the printer and you've never had a different printer, you will see that you probably won't notice a difference. But on our printer, if you pull out your parts and you look at how smooth they are, you can just take them out and polish them with your handpiece if you want. You're going to do a diagnostic or something like that, but you can't see the pixels. Our team is really good at anti-aliasing. So let's take a look at this one on the left. This one, we took the handpiece and polished it. And on the right, we couldn't take the handpiece and polish it. And I want to show you why. Let me go back one here. So I'm going to zoom in to the picture on the right. And if you can see all these little ridges, if I were to send this to the doctor and he had to make temps off of this, he would have cleanup to do. You see, it would not be a nice, smooth temporary for him. So this could not take the place of our wax ups, our diagnostic wax ups. It was too much work. We had to recontour them. And if you look on this one, you can still see a little bit of pump lines, but it was easy to smooth out. And in fact, all you had to do, you could just throw your floor wax on there like you did with your diagnostic, or you can just take your handpiece, use some DiaShine, and do it that way. So I'm going to show you live nesting right now and show you how to nest some models. Are there any questions about the basic functions of that I showed you, the benefits of nesting software?
I think we're still good right now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, this is what nesting looks like, and I wanted to do it live so you guys could see it unedited. So I'm going to nest models today. You guys saw me nest dentures on Friday, and we're going to use model white. So I'm going to hit printer, and I'm going to choose which printer is connected, and you can name them whatever you'd like. What we did at my lab was named them different names, and then there was a lot of printers in there. And so the nesting technician would send it to a printer, and the person that was in charge of cleaning prints all day would be able to know which one, you know, needed the material change or things like that. And then you'll hit next. And we're going to do models today. And we're going to use white. And we're going to print in 50 micron. And I want to show you these 3 different build styles because it does make a difference on which one you choose. So this is a new one that you're going to see coming, Ortho Stack. And this one is optimized for, I'm going to show you a video of it actually, or maybe even live if we have some time. And I'm actually going to do this in a couple of days on the 8th. I'm going to show all about stacked printing. I'm going to do live stacked printing so you can see it all in action. It prints 18 to 40 models in 2 hours or less. depending on the height. And it automatically hollows and maintains labeling and things like that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that today. Now, your orthodontic is very fast. It's for horizontal or vertical model printing. So you can print, and I'm going to show you some of that on my presentation. Today, we're going to do prosthodontic models. So this is for horizontal printing, removable dies, and analog models. Okay, so we're going to hit set. And it's all the same accuracy between white, gray, and peach. It's all a matter of preference. So if you want to be able to see the contours or the, or you wanted white for patient presentation, I don't know, I like gray for my like anteriors, and even peach is good too. So, but peach doesn't pull as much gray color into your all ceramic crowns. And so peach is a favorite as well. And File or Control I is your hotkey for that. And then hit open or import, excuse me. And what we're going to do is highlight all of our models. And if you kind of start eyeballing it, I like to use this Invent Twister articulator because, well, because I work at a home office now, not a lab. So I don't have glue. So I'm going to show you that articulator. But this ball, it doesn't take up much space. I'm going to hit auto place. Now, if you want all the models to fit as tight as possible, hit 0, and then hit allow Z-axis rotation, and then hit 0 again, and this will keep it. This will make it go all the way to the outside of the build area. So hit set. Okay, and now if you look at it from a distance, it looks like they're touching, but actually they are not touching. So if you look at it when you zoom in, okay. And that's okay, it's perfectly fine, just the way this is. So you can print just like this. And this one, as you can see, is yellow. So if there's ever something that's yellow, you're gonna see that it needs to be repaired. You can have a little exclamation point. And if you hover over it, it says part contains bad geometries. And sometimes CAD software puts out something that needs to be fixed. And what's nice is you don't have to take it into Mesh Mixer anymore. You can just take it right over into our fix area. So select that model and hit prepare. And you hit fix. And you'll hit fix again. And what it'll do, it tells you what all is wrong with the model, and it kind of like puts it in a highlighted little area. And now it turns blue and it's ready to go. So you can just exit and hit add to print, and it'll put it back in the plate in that area. So make sure that's not touching. Okay. So now you're going to hit Smart Support. And if you see it, that happens, I actually had that model selected, so I'm going to click off of it and hit Smart Support again. Now it says a single support can be generated. I do not want to generate one support for all of them because, oops, excuse me, sorry about that, because nothing's overlapping. And I'm going to show you a scenario where you would hit yes, but there's no reason to. It just uses extra support material. And so if you don't have anything overlapping, there's no reason. If you were doing orthodontic and had 6 and you had them angled, then you would.
Adrian?
No. Yes?
I had just a question really quick. Somebody was wondering, what does part normal fix do?
That's actually for geometries that are not organic. Mm-hmm. So I would not use part normal fix. It's actually for like aerospace parts and things like that. So always never use that one.
Okay. And then they also wondered if there's a hotkey PDF file available.
Yes, and I can actually, I'll put that into the presentation, a shortcut to it, but you can click here in help and it'll bring you to a hotkey list as well.
Awesome, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to hit create supports and you're not going to change anything else. Okay, so I've printed this exactly the way it is, so it's ready to go. So I can show you what happens. Now, some people get really nervous about it when a support goes on the seating area, and so they go and remove it. But the problem with doing that is if you remove supports, you start to lose areas from your print. So if you don't like where your support is, let's see if I can find one, like this. Okay, I've printed this. I want to show you guys how to remove that support and still have a nice seating area But if you absolutely do not like that and you refuse to have it in that area, then change your orientation slightly and regenerate your supports. But don't just remove it and keep going, because you might have a floating area. It's okay to add supports, but don't remove them. And there's another one right there. And I've printed this exact file just a little while ago, so I'm going to show you how to remove these supports and still have a nice seating area. Also, one more thing that I wanted to let you guys know, so I'm going to hit close, is that when you have very horizontal areas, let's say like an inlay onlay, so maybe, I don't know that I have a great example here, but maybe this area where the gingiva mask is. But if you have something that's completely horizontal, you can actually hold Q, and Q, by the way, is transform. So if you want to change the angle, you can use Q. And if you hold shift, it will make it smooth, okay? So you can either use transform, like I showed you Friday, or you can hold the Q button down. But if you make a slight angle, anything that's horizontal, you won't have to worry about those pump lines that you'll sometimes see on something perfectly flat, okay? So if you want to have an even smoother surface, go ahead and put a little angle on it. And I'm just gonna hit Control Z and undo what I just did. And I'm gonna hit add to queue. That's all there is to nesting the models. Now, sometimes obviously your models aren't all gonna fit. I am really, I take time to trim away all the excess material. I make my models real small. And a lot of times I only print like models to check contacts. So I try to use as little model material as possible. I think it's very possible to be able to go model-less. I've helped a lot of labs go completely model-less except for implant analogs, implant models. And even that, you can still get there. So I'm going to hit add to queue. And you'll see this come up. We actually added, and you can turn it off as well, a quality check. So I'm going to hit it one more time. You can put a name there. If not, it'll just choose the name of the last model. I don't really care, but it's nice for people to be able to see that if they're not the ones running the printer. So it could say something like me first. Okay, and then it slices the file, and it'll put it into your queue. And I am going to take now the camera over to the printer so you can see me start the printer and clean the parts, and then show you some different scenarios for models that you can do. So just a couple of tidbits about the queue. You can actually add jobs from files, and you can move the parts around. I don't have enough jobs in here to move them around right now, but you can just click on them and hit move to top, move to bottom, delete them. Oh, and one more thing before I move away from here is I wanted to show you how to calculate the time. So model white is just a little bit slower than model peach. So if you need something really fast, go with peach. It'll be about 8 minutes faster. If you want to see how much material you need to have in the resin tray, or how long it'll take, go ahead and hit estimate. And this estimate, so this is a 42-minute print, and this is model white. I think in my model peach it was 36 minutes, and it's because of this tall model here. And it says to have 60 grams of material in. And I'm going to show you the lines in the build platform, or in the resin tray, that say where to fill it up. But this doesn't mean that these models are going to take 60 grams. It means that you have to have 60 grams in it to complete the build successfully. So it's going to take a lot less, but the material needs to keep flowing back underneath while the build platform is going down or up. And there's also one that we're working on. In fact, in the next couple of updates, you're going to see that the report here is going to be significantly simplified for dental people. So when you have a lot of crowns on here, or your models and it's not the same person, you can hit report. And right now it puts out an Excel spreadsheet. It's not as easy to read for dental, it's more for industrial, but we've actually worked on it a lot, and you'll see something really nice with a picture of where everything is, how much material it all took, and the name of the file and things like that, just like you use with your bill. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for just a second, and I'm going to set up over by the printing area. Okay, can you see me on a bigger screen, Holly?
Yes, looks good.
Cool. Okay, a little smoother than last time. I'm learning. Okay, so if you were with me on Friday, I showed you how to clean your membrane lip. So I'm going to show you one more time in case you're newer today and you didn't join us on Friday. So I always wear gloves when I'm going to touch my printer because some people are a little bit messier. You don't want to touch raw resin with your hands. You don't want to touch uncured parts with your fingers. And also, if you have glasses and something like that. So what I like to do is I always clean my membrane lip. Usually if I'm going to print, like this printer has had, I just leave the material if I'm going to be printing with the same material. You don't need to take it out. But if you're going to be switching out your materials, then obviously you will have the opportunity to clean your printer. So the maintenance that I say, and by the way, if you always print with Model Peach, you don't ever need to take the tray out. You can stir it in there, stir it gently. I'm going to show you how. But there's no reason to like take it out every night and put it away. Just keep it closed and that'll be just fine. So I use this little bottle and I always keep like this cloth in this bottle nearby and I just put some alcohol on it. You don't want to clean your orange lid with it because that will dry it out, but you can use it to clean all the other parts. So the orange lid can just be cleaned with like soap and water or a cloth, a soft cloth. So the membrane lip is what can cause stress on your membrane. So what you want to do is make sure it's always clean. And sometimes when you're taking out your tray, you might spill a little resin and then it gets cured on there and then you add a little bit of stress and so then you get a tear and you don't want to do that because the membrane will last you a year or two if you take care of it properly. So it's really important that I showed you don't remove supports and I'm going to show, and I showed you to clean this and there's one more portion that you need to do and that is to make sure your build platform doesn't have any residue at all on it. So I'm just going to clean this, make sure it's clean. And if for some reason you were to drop something on here and make a chip, just call us and we will show you how to use the proper sandpaper. We'll send you instructions. So this way you still have that smooth surface and you don't cause stress on your membrane, okay? So don't fear if you see a chip that you did on accident, maybe you dropped your build platform on it or somebody did something, it's easy to fix. You don't have to replace it, okay? So the next thing is that I was showing you guys on Friday that what I have here is I have a little cabinet and it has a name on it and I know that my MFH is in here and so I can take it and stir it every day. And when you're printing dentures or temporary crowns, you want to make sure that you do that because ceramic will settle. And so every couple of days, I'd say Friday night before you go home and Monday morning when you come in, if you leave it for like a week, it's going to take like 10 minutes to loosen up the ceramic from the membrane, okay? So we're going to put in our resin tray now. And this is Model White. And then you'll just close the tension arm. And this tension arm adjusts based on the amount of tension that it needs, okay? So you don't have to worry about breaking it. And when you, every time, if you're not the one that cleaned your plate, every time, rub your glove over it and make sure there's nothing left on there. Make sure they cleaned it properly, okay? Because you don't want any extra residue on there, putting unnecessary force onto that membrane, okay? You want a nice, clean base layer here, okay? And it just goes on magnetic and it has little notches so it doesn't go on any different way, okay? And then just click your door shut and hit start job. And it'll tell you, hey, make sure that you put Model White in here. That's what you called for. So I hit continue and use the back barcode on there. So if you just take it off your roller, you can also print out this barcode if your mixers are across the room. Maybe you have a big lab and you mix in a different section than you print. You can just print out all of your barcodes, take a little picture of them, and then just hang them on the side, like maybe a magnetic hook and then you can just grab it and put it, use it. And it says print platform is empty and clean. Yes, it is. Resin tray is full. Resin has been stirred. Start job. Okay, and now it'll go ahead and start the job. Now I'm going to remove the prints that I've done. This is the same build that I showed you how to nest. And I use a cookie sheet with foil, and I showed you guys this on Friday as well. But if you didn't join me, every day I pull off a layer, the dirty layer, and I throw it in the garbage. And on Fridays I put extra layers for next week. So I'm ready to go. It's just faster than cleaning it. And when I'm done printing, I like to put my resin or my build platform up, so this way it'll all the extra will pour back into the build or the resin tray. If you can see it, it's dumping out, and that's kind of nice too because I actually saved quite a bit of model resin. If you can see it all coming out, it pours out. So nothing gets trapped, and that also means you don't have to put drain holes in your models because there's a perforated build platform here. Okay, so now I'm going to move the camera over to the cleaning station. And I'm going to show you how I have this set up. Now, you can see my models here. Now, what you're going to do when you remove your models from your build platform is you don't need to punch them out, okay? You just need to twist them off and rub off your supports. Now, I have no supports, okay? The longer you let like model white sit or CNB MFH sit, the harder the supports are to remove. So if you just take them off and remove them right away, don't wait until after you've cleaned them. Just take them off, rub them off. See, my dies have literally no scarring at all. Okay, and if you just give it a little twist. Now I'm going to show you this on the PowerPoint, but I have 1.5 millimeter model walls. I have never been able to have that thin of walls ever. So I'm saving material big time, and it's still sturdy enough. I also have an analog model. I wanted to show you guys how to insert your analogs. And there's that model that had the support, and that just rubs right off. Oops, a little slippery. Okay, so you just rub these off, and then you're going to put them in a dirty bath. Now, my dirty bath is pretty dirty, and that's fine. I recycle mine though, so what I do is I always use my dirty bath quite a few times, and then I'll dump it into a bottle. Okay, and by the way, this is 91%. And then I let everything settle at the bottom, and then I'll reuse it again the next day for the dirty bath. I always use a new clean bath, but I kind of go through different recycling things, and then I'll show you what I do. I use this glove. You might have caps for yours. I just don't like the smell of alcohol. I don't have an exhaust here. And it goes in for 3 minutes. Okay, and then while that in the ultrasonic, I use this Tupperware container. And by the way, if you're using model white, you don't want to cross-contaminate, so you don't want to use shaded material. So if you're doing gingiva mask or gray, you don't want to use the same dirty bath because it might gray your white models, and you want nice bright models. It's the same way with my CNB MFH. So what I have is I have this Tupperware container, and I have this little thing that came in the accessory kit, the stand, the build plate stand. And what I'm going to do is I put all my really dirty IPA in here, so it's always on rotation. And then I use my punch tool, and you're going to go along to the right and then back through the middle. And by the way, we're working on some new prototypes for this, so this way you don't have to. And so I'm using this bigger one, and this one actually is just 4 times. So instead of having to go all the way through. But what you have right now is this one, and you're going to go punch, punch back, and then punch to the right again. Okay, and then the next thing you do is this paintbrush that we sent you with your accessory kit. everything in your accessory kit actually needs to get used if you want to work efficiently. And you're just going to use this paintbrush, okay? And you can see that I have a couple of more parts here. So you're just going to use this little scraper that we gave you and get those two little pieces off that you missed, and use your glove and see if there's anything left on that build plate, and there's not. So you're done cleaning your build platform, and what I like to use is these white balls. They're very thick, but you can reuse them again after that. But you can see I have all of my build platforms that I've been using today that are cleaned, and I just want them to be ready for the next time. So I'm putting my build plate back on there, and my tray is going back over to my print area. Now, when your ultrasonic is done, you can dump your dirty bath or whatever, and I always have a second one for my clean bath. And so these are the ones I did earlier because I didn't want to put that sound in your ear of the ultrasonic. So when they're done, make sure that you don't let them sit in there for longer than the 3 minutes and the 2 minutes, because it'll start eating away, especially if it's a biocompatible part. You don't want it to get weak from the alcohol eating at it. And you want your dyes to fit properly. And so when I set my parts up, I set them up like at an angle. I just kind of lean them against each other. Or obviously, I'm not working in a lab right now. I'm working in my home office, so I don't have an air hose. But if you have an air hose, just go ahead and spray them off and let them sit for a few minutes before you put them in the cure oven. Now, if you have lab analogs like I have here, I'm just going to wipe my hands. You can put your lab analogs in before you do your cure. So what you can do is, you can see that I have this guy here. You can just use a little brush like this, and you can use some of your resin if you're not going to reuse your lab analog. And you can just put your analog in, and I have one that I already did. And I just put a little resin in down here to secure it, just like you would do with some glue, and then cure it in the cure oven like that. Okay, so lab analogs go in, same with surgical guides, okay? So they go in before you do your post-cure. And you can just use resin to glue. Same with anything, really. So once you do that, you should have your little cheat sheet that we have online. It's your stirring and mixing chart. So I laminated mine, and I just keep it taped up here, and now I can wipe it down if I need to, but it tells me exactly how long. I don't have techs guessing, and I'm not guessing. So you'll just put it in there for the 10 minutes, and then you'll have your lab analogs done. Now I wanted to show you a couple of other ideas that people do, such as like MFH dyes, and that's kind of like a stump shade. Okay, and you can print your dyes and your models separately if you wanted to do something like that, if you were making stumps anyway. Here's a white model. Now, if you wanted to, since it's not going in the mouth, you could actually, instead of using the floor wax, you could paint a little bit of white resin on there. You'll just want to, kind of like you do with your dentures, you just want to make sure you clean out your interproximals, but then you'll have that shine, and you don't have to go polish it or put floor wax. Some people like the white models not only for patient presentation, but for bite splint models or ortho IBT models. Now, ortho IBT is a real flexible material, and so I just brought a couple things over here for you guys to see. This would be maybe nice for a matrix too. I'm not sure how you guys work with your provisionals, but you might want to think about that. And also, there's a few different looks as far as gingiva masks. Some people add their articulators onto their models, and gray and gingiva looks good. So here's your gingiva mask. This is done on ExoCAD. I like to put the little beads, but some people would prefer to have a smoother surface. Fits fine either way. I always keep my gingiva mask about 2 millimeters thick. It's just rigid enough to be able to have it just like GI mask that you use on the analog way. And then obviously you have your peach. Now, if you have a die that you couldn't get that little nub off of, I showed this on Friday also. This is how I would remove that support if you missed something with these little pair of snips, or even fingernail clippers. Some people use that on their RPDs or cast or anything like that. And obviously you can use a hand piece if you feel like going over there and recontouring something, but they're so small that they just kind of pop right off. So if you just need a little extra hand to do that. And then I told you that I would show you that articulator. There's a couple of things that you do want to remember, and that's with your dies. So I have, this is an ExoCAD model. You want to have that margin have a little bit of a enforcement here. So I usually go 0.2, 0.3, something like that. And so instead of ditching it right under the margin, you'll let it go down and have a bit of a shelf, okay? Almost like a bevel, just for support when you're printing. You can do a few different things. So on ExoCAD, you can have more of a geometric shape. I don't know if you can see that. It's not very clear, but it doesn't follow the shape of the margin. It's more of a geometric shape, so it has flat edges. Or you can have it follow the contour of the margin. And they both equally have a nice fit of die. So if you use the ExoCAD settings, if not, I can give you some parameters to use. Really what it is that horizontal shaft gap, the gap between the die and the model needs to be 200 microns, 0.02, excuse me, 20 microns. So then it's ready to articulate. I use this Invent articulator here because I don't have glue and all of the lab supplies. Either way is good, but the scarring is nice because even with a Vertex articulator, if you use that cup, it'll work out perfectly well. Or if you're going to print your own articulator, works out good. It just takes a lot of material. So with that, is there any questions about my post-processing station?
Yes, somebody is wondering, how would you advise to use or dilute 99% IPA to 91%?
Yeah, so just use it. Look, it can be a slightly arbitrary, okay? Like you can use, just put 1/10 water, basically. I just added water in mine when I couldn't get 91. If you don't use 91, or if you don't dilute it, you will get white residue on all of your stuff. So you want to make sure you do dilute that. Water should work fine.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
From when you were nesting before, someone was also wondering, they were saying the time that is required to print a job on their printer seems significantly differ compared to the actual amount of time. Is that a typical thing, or is it a problem specific to?
I'd say it'd be about within 2 minutes. It should be. There was a problem on a couple of softwares ago, a couple of versions ago, that it was pretty far off. So the longer the job, the worse the time difference would be. It doesn't have an automatic updater from between the two, from the printer to the 3D Sprint. So when you go to check on it, it won't measure up. But we have addressed that issue. So it should only be within a couple minutes now. Make sure you're on the newest version of Sprint. And if not, then try to get upgraded because we did fix that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more questions about post-processing, if you don't want any more tips or tricks on that, then I will go back and show you price per part and a couple of other materials that we have. Good? No more questions?
That's good.
Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to show my screen. And let's see if I can make my camera view smaller here. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera view off. You guys don't need to see me smiling, huh? Okay.
Adrian, really quick, I guess I was going to ask this at the end, but maybe it's something you could address as you're going through. Someone was wondering, as far as printing masks, if they use part normal for that, and if you could just kind of address that a little bit.
Okay, so printing masks, that's a good question. I've been working on a lot of mask printing, as you probably have seen me on Facebook, but can't give too many tips on it so much. Can you tell me more about why you need to use part normal fix, do you think? I mean, it would probably be.
He just asked, he said, should I use part normal? He was just wondering if that's what he would use for printing a mask.
Just use the same thing that you use for your teeth.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some of the advanced functions for 3D Sprint. Let me put this on here. And let's see what we have here. So there's a few advanced things, and I'm not going to go totally into detail, but I want you to for sure ask if you want something more in a detailed version. I just wanted to give you an overview of what is possible. There's a lot more also that's possible, but we're going to start with, I think we're going to start with Boolean. So basically, you can bring in a part, and you can bring in another part. And so I'm going to bring in an arch over my try-in, and I'm going to hit Boolean. And you can actually subtract those teeth from your try-in. And you can do this with a lot of different things. So it's just an idea for denture try-ins, perhaps. You could make a setup after the try-in. And if you had to adjust the occlusion, you don't have to go all the way back through and design everything. Now you can do this with several different ideas as well. So partials, flippers, and all kinds of things. If you scanned in a tooth and wanted to extract it, you don't have to use Mesh Mixer anymore. Let's see. My PowerPoint hates me. Okay, and you can also hollow your models. So I'm going to just show you this here since I'm having technical difficulties on my PowerPoint. In fact, I could just show you it live, but okay, so let's do repairing scan data, and not just what I was showing you earlier with milling, but also right from an intraoral scan. Let's say that you don't want to go through Model Creator, you just needed a quick model to show. So basically, you could just bring in a shell and hit prepare and hit fix and use fix again. And it'll close the bottom there, and you can add to print. And you can, if you don't need that flat bottom, you don't need to generate a geometry or anything. You can just print it at an angle like this and generate your supports and hit add to queue. So if you just wanted a rough model to check on what your scan was like, you can also add labels. So you can add the patient's name, you can add your logo on your model maybe. So what I brought in was, if you get a DXF file, which you can convert an STL into, so of your logo, you can bring it in as a drawing, or you could do text. So you'll just hit engrave, and that's in your prepare screen. Okay, and you can also hollow models. So we're actually working on an easier way to hollow models right now for dental. But the way you're going to hollow right now is you're going to go to holes, say how thick you want your model wall. I always like 1.5. Then you hit split, and you're going to pull off that bottom, okay? Because it makes it completely hollow. Now, if you're going to print something that was maybe like a mandible, you can also have connectors and things like that as well. But if you're going to print something that was very dense, you could actually hollow it out so you don't use as much material, and it would print faster. So that's another idea as well. And then Boolean, I showed you that. Now, I showed you guys also how to use the support bar function, but I would really encourage you to use it for orthodontic models or full arch horseshoe models, especially if you were making a bar on it, or like a denture, lower jaw denture. So what you're going to do is import your file, and we were giving you a new option called create bars. And instead of having to generate geometry and make a cylinder, we're going to have you just click on each side and hit apply. Okay, and then you're done with adding your bar. Now, I do have a video on YouTube that I can show you how to do it now, but within 2 weeks, you're going to have the create bar function. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of how to use that before they received it. It'll just be up there in the middle of your toolbar as another option. Now, if anybody is wondering why we can actually get away with printing so fast with such small supports, I wanted to go over what makes it a little bit different to use the Figure 4 or the Nextdent printer. The difference is this, really it's just a membrane, right? But we didn't stretch out the build platform to be much larger. And so people say, well, why is your build platform so small? We actually use the same projector, the same high power projector as the people that you see with the larger build platform, but we didn't stretch our pixels. So we get a nice, very detailed, very consistent part with high accuracy because of the fact that we didn't stretch that whole projection. That perforated build platform with the holes in it allows it to pump so fast without all of the adhesion. And so it's not pulling away because it relieves some of that suction. And then we have the unique membrane. So the parts actually don't peel away from the membrane like you see on some of the other ones, which is why they have to have such huge supports. So you're able to pull the build platform up because the parts are never coming off of there, so that adhesion is not happening. So I'm going to show you why. Okay, it means now that membrane, like everybody wants to know, well, why is the resin tray so expensive? That membrane is the technology. It lasts you for 1 to 2 years with proper use. It's up to 1,200 or more prints. And it won't fog up, so you'll never see it fog up. Now, if you feel like it's foggy, watch that video about how to clean your resin tray. It's probably just residual that you just didn't rinse well, okay? It's also smaller. So this way you don't have to use as much resin. You can have just 100 grams of resin in there for a full 6 full arch models. And the tray is made of aluminum, so it's recyclable. So you have less waste all in all, less throwing away your trays, and you can use it for all of your different resins. So you can clean it out and use it for any resin you want. There's no worry about cross-contamination, just clean it well. It also allows you to use very thin parts, such as veneers or very small models, without them warping. You've never been able to print a model this thin before without worrying about warpage. Also, what I was telling you about the adhesion, it actually doesn't delaminate by pulling off of that membrane. And you've probably seen this before. Let me turn off the sound here because it's kind of annoying. Turn it down. But this is how you have to remove parts from a lot of build platforms, and you could never get away with a 1.5 millimeter model wall because you have to pound it to get it off of there. And you already saw me remove parts, so I'm not going to play this video again. But it also means that we don't need as many supports. So you know how thick the supports are on a lot of printers that you've had to use, or you're wondering, hey, how come I don't have to add more supports? Why are there so few? It's because of all the reasons that I just showed you. So you can rest easy, feel comfortable that when you hit generate supports, that there are enough supports. You don't have to add a ton. And also, you're wondering why the surface quality is so good. These are just photos I took when I was surprised of like I printed this bridge out for a friend. He wanted to see our microfilled hybrid material, and he put it on this model, and I was just amazed at the quality of the model. It was just terrible. And it's because of the type of membrane and the technology that they use that they just don't have that nice finish. And same with this, right? You can see all of the pump lines. It's very low quality. And this is printers that cost twice as much as the Nextdent printer. So this is just a review. Make sure that you do your 2 minutes in the clean bath. Don't mix up your, if you're going to use model white or bleach, make sure that you don't mix those that first dirty bath with something that was darker. You don't want it to be off colored. And by the way, when you're doing model white or MFH bleach, make sure that you don't leave it out in the residual light or ambient light, because it will absorb the color from the bulbs that are above. For example, they could turn a little bit yellow or grayish from sitting out. So I would cover it with a cloth, like a white ball or something like that if you're not ready to clean yet. Just put it in somewhere that it's not going to absorb the light around it. So I'm running out of time right now. So I want to go ahead and get through to some of the more price per part and things like that. I think you guys joined me, so I did show a few of these slides already on Friday. I did want to point out that the dental landscape is, the Nextdent is one of the most prominent, provides 80% of the materials on the market, so you can rest easy that there are a lot of different indications it can do. If you're not sure, go to nextdent.com and you'll be able to see all of those. I'm sure EP probably has something as well. They were originally a denture company, founded in 1939, known for their dentures and RPD solutions. And now this is what it looks like in the Netherlands. So in 2012, they developed the Nextdent resins. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip past the dentures that we worked on Friday, and I'm going to show you some of the other indications, because I know that a lot of you were here on Friday. You can use the Nextdent cast for pressables as well, and it takes about 30 minutes to do 75 units, and you can do them for about 17 cents a unit. And this is what it would take to mill, 18 hours, so 1,125 minutes. So I am a firm believer in a mill is a good, it's a good combination with a printer, but you don't need to use the mill for things that your printer can do. And same with your RPD frameworks. I have a whole presentation on cast. So if you guys are struggling with any of your cast, let me know and I can send over that presentation for you. And same with your ortho rigid. Now this is what it looks like in the mouth. It prints really well with a blue tint on it. So we added the blue tint. It takes about 25 to 35 minutes and you're paying about $5 per splint. Your surgical guides are about 50 cents to $1 and it's a 25-minute print. It's really important that you see that you can actually print vertical or horizontal holes, which is pretty awesome. You're going to see that there's actually a few different color changes that happen with the surgical guide. So it'll start out clear and then it goes into an amber color. Okay, and then once it gets sterilized, then it turns back to clear. Okay, and it has a little bit of a yellow tint. Now, when you put your sleeves in, put them in prior to post-curing, and you can even use some resin to cure. I'm running a little bit over. Holly, am I losing people?
No, you're not at all.
Okay, so we're almost wrapped up here, but I wanted to go through the price per model. So you can do about 90 models a day with prosthodontic or orthodontic build style, and it still takes about the same amount of time, and it's about $1.80 to $3.30. And if you guys, I want to be respectful of your time. If you have to go, I'm happy to send you this PDF, or Holly will, so please don't feel like you'll miss it. So I wanted to show you a brief preview of stacking. This is your new module that's coming out, and we're starting with models, but we're actually going to go into dentures as well. So this is what it'll look like for you, and it'll just pop up on your 3D Sprint the next time you update. So you're just going to choose your printer. You're going to choose your model. You're going to choose white first. We're going to actually add peach and gray by the end of the month. You're going to choose your stacked arches. And this one, I had a nice small model. So I was able to put a bunch of models of the same model on them. So I have two actually series of the same arch. I just wanted to max out my build here, and it is, you're going to hit one button, stack arches, and then apply. And I'm going to do this live on Wednesday. So if you guys join me, I'll show you this, how to manage it live. I promise the presentation won't be this long. So what it does right now is it hollows out all of your models and it puts a lattice structure. And what that does is maintain stability. And you can see it has lingual supports. Those just peel right off. It has little feet on the bottom, so when you go to clean it, you can stand it up in your ultrasonic. You can stand it up in your cure oven. And we'll show you the whole process again on Wednesday. So that's it for stacking. And what's after stacking models is stacking dentures and stacking all types of things that are too big to fit on the build platform in mass amounts. It'll help you to be able to print overnight, and it'll be able to help you not have to start your printer every couple hours or every hour, not have to clean as often. So we've really cut your time and added capacity. So we've added finer support structures. This is already in your 3D Sprint. when you go to Nest, just choose General Fine Tip. Okay, and usually it'll default to general, but if you want a finer tip, just hit General Fine Tip. We added a 50 micron in Nextdent cast, same accuracy, but we were able to change the slicing and still give you that 30 micron accuracy with a 50 micron slice. So now you have an extra build style. We added a premium build style, so you have higher detail. It's a little bit of a slower build, but you can now do solid models, and literally does not look like it was printed at all. We also added a new update for MFH that supports shell temps. Originally it was for denture teeth. We got our clearance on denture bases, 3D Denture Plus. And we've got better automation now, improving your nesting workflow, and support bars coming, well, next month. Now, for every material, you don't have to buy more accessories. It's going to stay the same for all of them. And as you know, our support structure is through partners, and we're always there to support everyone. So when you guys get a chance, if you have more questions, obviously you can reach out, but there's a really nice workflow user guide online that has videos and PDFs on how to do just about anything you can think of. So it's at the info center. So basically just Google Nextdent 5100 user guide and it'll come right up. So I don't need to go through the recap because you guys have given me tons of patience and extra time. So thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate your time and support. And please join me again on Wednesday if you'd like to see the new stacking function. And it won't be as long as today. But thank you again, and be sure to ask Holly for the presentation if you'd like. Send me all of your questions. Thank you if you sent me questions before. I did receive quite a few of them via my email. So feel free to reach out, and thank you, aesthetic professionals, for having me today.
Thank you, Adrienne. We really appreciate you doing this. I do have a couple questions. Is that okay?
Sure, of course.
Okay. I had a couple people asking if you could address cleaning an old resin tray, or cleaning a resin tray and switching to another.
Sure, I can either do it live for you right now if you guys have time, or I can just, why don't I pop up a YouTube video for you, and you can watch it. I've got the whole thing down.
Okay.
But there's a really quick, it's like 3-minute steps. And it's really fast and easy. You won't have any streaking at all. So let me, let's see if I can find the chat here and I can put it in the chat. Do you have this person's email, Holly?
Yeah.
Cool. I will send it over to you guys. Is that okay?
Yeah. So
cool.
I got, yep. Dr. Shank and Oscar. Yep, I'll send them over to them. And
Perfect.
then I don't know if this would be a long one or not, but can you address, sorry, oh, I got a few more. Printing an implant model.
Sure.
Somebody was having some issues with it. So I don't know.
Okay, make sure you're using.
Okay, go ahead.
The big thing is make sure that you're using prosthodontic, obviously. But one of the things that people have had issues with is if your implants are placed like sideways, or maybe like the model is placed and the implant is crooked, make the implant analog as straight as possible. So if you have to tilt your model, just try to make sure that analog is as vertical as possible. Same with surgical guides. So even though the model would be great to be able to be horizontal, if you have to angle it so your analog can go straight up and down, that's the best bet. So the more vertical your analog hole can be, the better.
Okay, awesome. And then can you address sterilizing?
Yeah, so you can use your autoclave. You can pouch it or not. That's fine. The surgical guide will turn clear after that, but basically just autoclave it with the rest of your surgical instruments. Should be fine. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I believe so. And then can you use denatured alcohol?
That's a good question. I'm going to look into that. I've gotten that question a lot lately. You can use bioethanol or any kind of 91% or higher alcohol content. So denatured alcohol probably falls into that, but I haven't used it myself. So Holly, if you could take down their email address, I can make sure that that is part of our FDA cleared workflow. But as long as it's got that alcohol content, I think it should be okay. We'll follow up though.
Okay, all right. The website for the info guide.
Yeah, I can show that again if you'd like.
Yeah. And I will say that the 3D Systems, the support website, it is really helpful.
Okay.
Last question.
You see that?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're good.
Is that it, everybody?
That is it. I will send an email and I'll send the PDF again to everybody in the video. So.
Yes, and I will add the resin tray cleaning. I think it's helpful for everybody. So I'll add that to this PDF.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a good day. Stay safe.